The time is now 7 p.m. Time for the CBC Evening News. This time check is brought to you by Fruta.
There's no easy solution to solid waste disposal in Barbados. Litigation contributing to rising healthcare costs on the island. And in sports, possible pay cut issues brewing again in the West Indies camp just ahead of the ICC World Cup tournament.
Credible, balanced, committed. This is the CBC Evening News.
Well, a very good evening to you. I'm Sophia Cambridge with this Wednesday, Ash Wednesday, February 10th edition of the CBC Evening News. In our top story tonight, Prime Minister Frundle Stewart says there is no easy solution to the solid waste problems in Barbados. However, he says his government is working to resolve the issue. Prime Minister Stewart attributes the current situation to a shift in the production, distribution and consumption practices of Barbadians. According to him, current problems with solid waste disposal are not new to the ruling Democratic Labour Party or to the opposition Barbados Labour Party governments. The Prime Minister's remarks were made during parliamentary debate on the amendment to the SSA Act.
The Barbados Labour Party, to its credit, tried to deal with the problem, and its way of dealing with the problem was the story of the Greenland landfill. That problem, or that approach to the problem, was singularly unsuccessful. And here we are today, talking about the same problem that was tackled by the Barbados Labour Party when it was in office. The problem predated the Barbados Labour Party when it was in office.
And Prime Minister Stewart made it clear that garbage does not come from the government or the Sanitation Service Authority, but is generated by households. He says the first step in managing the solid waste problem must be at the source.
Householders have to take more responsibility for the waste that they generate. The Sanitation Service Authority will do its job, but we have to be a lot more sensitive in terms of how sometimes I see our streets lined with garbage, even though it is known that the authorities' vehicles may not be passing there that day. Because it's all right for us to generate it, pursue all the conspicuous consumption that we want to pursue. But once we generate the garbage, the quickest thing we want to do is to get it off our property and to dump it on the public.
And opposition MP for St. Michael South East, Antia Bradshaw, wants more information on the proposed plasma gasification plant. She believes that even though government says it won't cost taxpayers any money, there's still a cost attached.
The government of Barbados has to supply water infrastructure to the plant free of charge, and that includes the pipeline, the construction, and the commissioning as well. So there is a cost to the people of this country, there's cost to the Barbados government and to the taxpayers of this country. There is also the fact that the government of Barbados has to deliver the environmental impact assessment on the facility.
Addressing the issue of illegal dumping, Ms. Bradshaw says this act can have an impact on tourism. She says both sides agree that action has to be taken to combat the scourge. Ms. Bradshaw would like to see spaces designated in densely populated areas where people can take their communal garbage.
It is not going to be a case that you may be able to get down into small avenues to be able to collect the garbage. But we have to find ways and maybe revisit the population expansion in a number of our communities to determine where we may have to relocate persons in order to create spaces where our litter can properly be disposed of.
Well, we now turn from the lower house to the upper house or Senate, where debate in the pre- and post-lunch session centred on the Companies Amendment Bill 2016. That piece of legislation is designed to make it easier for international business companies to do business here in Barbados. Leader of Government Business in the Senate, Senator Maxine McLean, during debate on the amendment bill, says Barbados' competitiveness will be enhanced as a result of the legislation.
It is intended then to provide for this alteration of structure, which allows for the better management of the cells, or what I would call the different business activities, which would fall into that particular business structure. So in essence, I believe that overall what we're trying to do here is to ensure that we are responsive to the cause of the people who function in the sector, particularly in the area of insurance, in a way that allows greater flexibility in respect of the companies that can be incorporated within Barbados.
Senator McLean, who's also the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, says Barbados sees potential in the market of the United Arab Emirates. According to her, the possibility of sending a delegation of public and private sector representatives there was discussed during a recent visit to Barbados by a UAE government official. She says that country is ripe for investment. In the meantime, Senator McLean says it's important for Barbados to market our country as a good place to invest.
This is a process that is ongoing, and I will illustrate what I mean. In recent times, we would have seen and heard and read of a blacklisting effort that the European Union would have issued a blacklist, and we called on them to address it because, in essence, when we look at Barbados, we are a jurisdiction which continues to operate according to best practice, a jurisdiction which is a low-tax jurisdiction as opposed to any tax haven as people may want to classify us.
Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, Senator Jepta Ince, says he sees employment being created and millions of dollars generated with the amended Companies Act. He also supports calls for Barbados to set up an arbitration centre.
Sometimes, for example, if a company trades commodities or contracts, what we call forward contracts, within that cell, you could have problems. And one of the ways that you will solve those problems is by arbitration. For example, if a company enters into forward contracts to have oil deliveries at a specific time, at a specific price, and that delivery isn't made at that price or at that specific time, then the rules and regulations and international trade say to go to arbitration. If Barbados have that arbitration center, it can be settled here.
Barbados will be mounting a mission to several countries later this year as it moves to grow its international business sector. The information has come from Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Senator Darcy Boyce, as he debated the Companies Amendment Bill 2016.
Hopefully we will be able to mount a mission very shortly to some of those banks that we've targeted, to try to persuade them to see if they can come into Barbados and set up, particularly to deal with the international businesses that we have here. It is going to be a hard task, but we are going to try and get that done very early in the year, so that we can release that pressure on the international business sector and give it a chance to grow a little bit better.
Meanwhile, Opposition Senator Wilfred Abrams has lamented the amount of time it takes in Barbados to get cases heard in the judicial system. He says it poses several challenges, and businesses and business people who encounter many adjournments and delays in the court system. He made the comments in the Upper House as it debated the Companies Amendment Bill 2016.
As it stands right now, on any day, the majority of cases are set for 9:30. So you have hundreds of people cluttering up the third floor of the Supreme Court building, all coming there from 9:30. The cases cannot be heard at 9:30. You have business people coming and wasting a whole day. You have hundreds of lawyers, sometimes more than 100 lawyers, loitering on the third floor of the court, wasting productive time for a matter that may be called last or may get adjourned because the court can't find the files. At which point do we say enough is enough?
And independent Senator Sir Trevor Carmichael wants commercial banks to capitalize on the financial opportunities offered by dozens of international business companies which are operating in Barbados.
But I suggest, Madam President, that wherever there is a challenge, we know that there is a countervailing opportunity. And this is why a lot of the indigenous banks need to focus and refocus on the area of international business. And in the same way that some of the other banks have provided this challenge, it's an opportunity which the indigenous banks should take up and take up forcefully.
We'll have more news in just a moment, including a report on the reason behind rising healthcare costs on our island.
Presidia, the personal accident coverage from Guardian Life. Live secure. Live easy.
Trees clean our air. Trees absorb carbon dioxide and they put back out oxygen, which we breathe and need to survive.
Trees provide shade. If you have your house and you plant trees that can shade the walls or shade areas of your home, then your house is basically less hot inside.
So in the summer months when the sun is beating down and scorching and the fans don't seem to be producing enough wind, the shade from the trees is cooling your house.
Trees are the silent sentinels. Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Repeated on Saturday at 6 p.m. Trees are the silent sentinels.
Get into the mix on Friday, February 12th for a special Valentine's edition. Sweet love stories, great prizes and giveaways from the Mix with Love.
Lawsuits by patients dissatisfied with their medical treatment are being cited as a key reason why healthcare costs are rising in Barbados. This emerged last evening at the most recent town hall meeting held at the St. Michael's School. It's intended to find ways to finance Barbados's growing healthcare costs. Kent Jerson has the story.
Rising healthcare costs in Barbados are due in part to the risk of lawsuits by patients, which translates into significant insurance premiums for doctors. This is what President of the Barbados Association of Medical Practitioners, Dr. Carlos Chase, said at a town hall meeting held to discuss the issue of healthcare financing.
You damage a baby, it's $18–20 million. And everybody expects to have a perfect outcome, but they have any surgery, visit the doctor, have a delivery, slightest little scratch is a big problem. So we expect perfection, and we don't get perfection, we get these punitive awards, and that is what drives the cost of healthcare.
Dr. Chase says as a result, the insurance premium for some doctors is as high as $60,000, which has to be paid along with the professional fee of $2,500 before a doctor can practice.
So if my output before I start is going to be $60,000, and you come to visit me, or I come to do a delivery, you would expect that we're not going to charge you peanuts. You would expect I would charge you Mercedes-Benz type fees. The point is that litigation and the cost of the cost is tremendous, and that's what drives the cost of the premiums, and that's what drives the cost of healthcare.
However, head of the National Insurance Department, Ian Carrington, said the issue can be addressed. He suggests doctors can lobby to have the payout for lawsuits capped.
We have the same thing in the motor insurance sector, where for almost a decade in the early 90s, the motor insurance sector could not get coverage. And essentially, we passed legislation to cap the individual incident and to cap when there was an accident with several parties. So that brought down the cost of motor insurance.
Regarding hefty premiums paid by doctors, Mr. Carrington says this doesn't have to be the case.
You have colleagues in the insurance sector here. Pool your risk. Pooling your risk only require you to set up some captive, put your insurance premiums in there, pay, and then you'll be able to essentially reduce the cost of the service that you're offering. Currently registered in this domicile is a captive insurance company that provides coverage for all the doctors in Ontario. This ain't too difficult for all the doctors in Barbados to do.
This was the latest in a series of town hall meetings being held to find answers to the rising healthcare costs in Barbados. Solutions coming out of these meetings are expected to inform government's policies to address the situation. Kent Jerson, CBC News.
Thank you, Kent. Well, who is destroying the island's last known forest area in St. Andrew? That is what Environment Minister Dennis Lowe wants to know, because he intends to deal with the culprits. Shane Seeley has the story.
This is Turner's Hall Woods in St. the last one existing in Barbados. On what was a very wet day, Environment Minister Dr. Dennis Lowe led a team from the ministry, along with some professors from the UWI Cave Hill campus, through this rough terrain in the woodland area. This is government land and expected to be untouched by humans. But today we found evidence proving that's not the case.
But this is something very recent. This is only a track. This is something. There's a hiking trail before. Yeah.
Clearly, the area was cleared, and we think we know who is responsible for it, but without the necessary evidence, it would be difficult to say. But the fact is that, as you would have noted, there are a lot of tire tracks in the area. There has been some clearing of what would have been natural footpaths now to areas, almost roads.
Now here in the heart of Turner's Hall Woods, the minister has described this area as monkey business by humans. He says people are using ATVs or all-terrain vehicles to traverse the area. And what he'll be doing is